Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Peter Diaz, California Community President for SEPQ West. One of the best ways to avoid falling victim to a financial scam is through awareness, particularly by learning to identify red flags. As part of SEPQ's continued focus on financial education, we hope that you find the information shared today helpful. Thank you for making the time to join us for our first fraud education and prevention seminar this afternoon. I would also like to both personally and on behalf of SEPQ thank and extend a warm welcome to the officers from Santa Clara Police Department. In just a few seconds, I'll hand over the presentation to them to help get our seminar underway. Before we begin, I do want to let the audience know that all microphones have been muted in order to minimize background noise. If you have a question at any point, simply navigate to and click on the chat icon on the bottom right-hand side of your WebEx screen and type your question to the host presenter. Our host presenter for the SEPQ team is Jennifer Quine, and we will field as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation. At this time, I'd like to hand over the virtual microphone and presentation to our first two presenters, Sergeant Pablo Lopez and Detective Mike Carlson of the Santa Clara Police Department.
Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties on that. So I'm Detective Mike Carlson of the Department. I currently work in the Financial Crimes Unit. Sergeant Pablo Lopez, we're going to be presenting our fraud new crime wave today. We're going to cover a variety of topics here. Mainly, we're going to touch on the three biggest issues that we have with financial crime: credit card fraud, check fraud, and of course, scams. We're also going to talk a little bit about identity theft. We'll talk about personal identifying information. We call it PII for short. How it can be used, and we're obviously going to talk about some things that you can do to mitigate these issues, solutions to fix it, and how to prevent it in the first place. Okay, so it's estimated that Americans lose right around $9 billion each year to fraud and identity theft. That's actually kind of a low-end number. I've looked at a lot of numbers, and I've seen numbers as high as $40 billion a year. So depending on what statistic you're looking at, it's all over the place. But there's a lot of money being lost every year to identity theft and to fraud. A common myth that senior citizens are the most common targets of this. That is not true. Fraud affects everybody. In fact, we're seeing now, because there's so many, the younger generation has so much stuff online, and they're so open to sharing their information through online sites, they're actually becoming more of a victim than a lot of our seniors are. But it affects everybody equally. And fraud victims, like we said, are spread across all age groups. And like I said, we're going to touch on these three major things: credit card fraud, check counterfeiting, and then we're going to talk. So let's first start with credit cards. Credit card fraud obviously occurs when a suspect gets your credit card information and uses it without your permission. In the upper right corner there, you'll see a credit card skimmer. I actually have one of those on my desk. We use it to take the information off of a credit card. And if you look at the back of your credit card, there's a credit card code there, a bar that you use to run through a computer, and that has all your information for the credit card. Several years ago, that used to be the big thing, is you would swipe your card somewhere, and maybe if you especially went to a store where somebody left with your card, maybe a restaurant, and it wasn't uncommon for us to get a case of a restaurant that had maybe 20 credit card breaches, and we'd find out that there was a waiter or a waitress who took the credit card in the back and had a skimmer similar to the one there, but usually a lot smaller, and they would just swipe cards, and they would keep everybody's credit card information that they serviced that night. About 4 years ago, we started switching over to the chip card. So everybody who has a credit card in their wallet or their purse right now has a little chip on it. And with the chip technology, you actually have to use the chip with the barcode information. So they have to work in tandem. So swiping a card and keeping that information really doesn't work as well anymore. You can still swipe a card, you can still keep the information, but you can't use it without actually having the card in your hand and having the actual chip. There are some exceptions to that. If you guys go to gas stations and use your credit card at gas stations, you'll notice that gas stations don't require chips still. You can still swipe at a gas station. That's the one place that is supposed to change over, I think, by the end of this month. But other than that, if you're going to use your card at a point of sale, you have to have a chip. So we don't see as many swipe card cases as we used to. We will still see skimmers attached to gas stations. We just had one here in Santa Clara last week. where a skimmer had been attached and some information was taken from that skimmer, and they actually caught the suspect down south in LA. So we do get a few of those cases. We'll also see skimmers once in a while attached to ATMs with a camera so they can catch your PIN code as you're entering your PIN code. So that's also something that we still do with on skimmers. But the handheld skimmers that people are using to take your card information, that's kind of an old thing that's going by the wayside because of chip technology. Hackers and online data breaches, that's something we get all the time. That is very, very common. Most of the credit card cases that I have deal with hackers and online data breaches. I was working on one today where I had 4 or 5 victims that I contacted that had their credit card information taken. We found their information in a fraud suspect's house that we served a search warrant on, and we found all this information, all the variety of people's names, all their information and their credit card information. And when I contacted them, they basically said, yeah, I have no idea how my information got out there. I still have my card, haven't lost my card, card hasn't been stolen. Somehow the information was hacked between where they're at and where they used it at, somewhere in the cloud, in the internet, and those card numbers were used to make a ton of purchases. One guy had $6,000-7,000 Airbnb purchases. So that is something that we deal with quite a bit. Eavesdropping, you don't see that as much. That would be like somebody using their card just openly in public, talking on the phone, giving their credit card information out. Hopefully most people don't do that anymore. And we don't have too many cases where people are able to obtain card information that way. And then the more traditional way, and we still see a lot of this, is theft, mail theft, home burglaries, car break-ins. Once somebody has your physical card, like we talked about, they can still use it. So that hasn't changed, and we still get a lot of theft. How's the information used? They can use your actual card or the card info to create cards. Again, we don't get this as much because, like we talked about, you have to have an actual chip embedded in your card now. So we don't get that as much. Generally, if they embed your information into a dummy card, the only thing they can do with it is use it at a terminal that doesn't have chip technology, which is mainly relegated to gas stations now. But when they do that, or if they have your information, they're using it online, they're going to use some test purchases just to make sure that the card is good to go and that it works, and then they'll go on a shopping spree because they know they have a certain window of time before the credit card company catches up to them and realizes that that card is a hot card and is going to shut it down. You'll usually see if your card has been accessed, you'll see a couple of small purchases, and you'll see a lot of very big purchases before it gets shut down. Just some quick prevention tips. How can we prevent this? You can use your credit card instead of your debit card, right? Your debit card is connected to your checking account usually. For a credit card, you're playing with the bank's money. So if you use your debit card and it turns out that there are some fraud purchases that get made, your account number gets obtained by somebody else, they use that card and they make fraudulent purchases, that money's going to come out of your account, coming out of your checking account. And most banks are pretty good about trying to work with you. If it's fraud, they'll try to reinstate that money. The problem is it's your money that's now missing. And I worked with a lady last week who had a case where she lost $7,000 from her debit card. Fraudulent purchases, money came out of her account. The bank ended up reinstating most of that money, but for several weeks she didn't have that money in her account to pay bills with and to buy the things she needed to buy. So unlike a credit card where it's the bank's money and you don't lose anything, as long as it's fraud and you report it in a timely fashion, they don't hold you. The most you can be held liable for is, I think, $50. So, always best use a credit card if you can. Only bring the cards you need. Again, if your wallet goes missing or something happens or there's a mishap, better to lose 1 card than lose 10 cards. So try to only bring the cards that you need. Limit handing off your card or providing your account number to anybody. And we'll talk more about this when we get into scams, but obviously your card is your card. You should keep it with you at all times. Try not to hand it off or loan it to anybody. Set up credit alerts with your bank. This is something that's really important. Most banks have gotten really good at noticing activity on the card that is not common with that particular user. So it's a really good idea to set up an alert with your bank. So if all of a sudden you're looking at $6,000 Airbnb purchase, the bank can say, hey, this doesn't look like activity that we see on this card, and they'll immediately shut it down. And we're going to come back to this theme a lot, but don't leave personal items or things in your car. That's just too easy for them to take your stuff. Check fraud.
For check fraud, all the suspect needs is a photo of your check, and they have access to your routing number and account number. They can go ahead and go buy the check stock paper at a stationery store or online, and they have check printing software that makes it easy for them to set up a printer at home. Like Mike was saying, we served a search warrant this last month, and the person had computers, a printer, all the things needed to make checks. from a victim's account number. Set up early, late each month. A flag means that the checks in the mail use a post office box. We know that the old-fashioned mailboxes with the flags, people just help themselves to your mail, and they'll victimize you that way. What recently started happening is they have the communal post boxes, and they'll break into those with shaved keys and take 30 people's mail, and that's 30 case numbers that we're investigating, and it's really creates a heartache for that family. Prevention tips, just like any other account, please monitor your checking account, especially if you have checks that are going out, on a regular basis. Crooks are pretty good at knowing when mortgages are due and utility bills are due, and people still write checks, so they'll go to your mailbox if you have the flag up, and they'll take the checks that you sent out. Secure your mailbox and use a PO box if that's a possibility, or just walk up to the counter if you want to get a certified letter with a check that's being mailed out. And like Mike said, don't leave your personal items in your car. The other place we see a lot of theft is at a grocery store. We see ladies leave their purse in the the cart there, and purse is open. They're distracted looking at any products on the shelves, and people come up and take your whole wallet, checkbook, wallets, credit cards, sometimes even the whole purse, and you won't notice until it's too late.
Okay, so we're just going to talk real quick about some of the scams that we're seeing. We'll go through them here one by one. Understand that the scam game, these are constantly changing. The scams that we're going to go over today may not be the scams that we're going to talk about next month or next year, certainly. So this is something that's constantly evolving, but we're going to go over some of the most common ones that we're seeing. And then these things, they're going to contact you in a variety of ways. Usually it's going to be phone is the big one. We're getting a lot of phone scams. We just had one in the office this morning, actually. Email, obviously through the postal service, and then the ones that really kind of get on our radar are the ones that are face-to-face, where people actually show up at your home. So we're going to talk about all these scams right here. There's the money transfer scams, the sweepstakes scams, home and car rental scams, family member jail scams, work at home scams, romance scams, utility bill scams, and IRS scams. Those are like the top probably 7 that we have, but there's a million more out there. These are the ones that we, at least in Santa Clara in this area, are seeing the most of. So a money transfer scam is basically any kind of an overpayment for rental and moving money back and forth. This is like when a suspect will ask you to send a check or cash, and then they'll want you to overpay for something and then send your money back. The secret shopper one used to be really common. It's kind of died down a little bit now as people have kind of caught on to it, but that used to be a really common one. Online money payment apps, anything involving a money payment app is always going to have a money transfer scam associated to it. A good example of this, I was having lunch with a friend of mine the other day, really smart guy. We were kind of finishing up lunch, and he says, "Hey, I got to get out of here. I got to run by the store and pick up an Amazon gift card." I was like, what do you mean an Amazon? What's that for? He's like, "Oh, I'm selling something online." He's using OfferUp, which is a really common website to sell stuff. I've sold stuff on OfferUp, never had a problem. He connected with the seller for a couple $100 item, and the person said, "Hey, can we exchange money? Just mail this item to me, and we'll exchange money via the Cash App." He asked this person to download the Cash App, so my friend downloaded the Cash App, legitimately, no problem. And then he gave the person who was going to be buying the item his information and said, "Send me the money." The money never arrives. A few minutes later, the person says, "Hey, I sent you the money. Did you get it?" And my friend says, "Well, no, I didn't get it." And then he gets a screen on his phone. It looks like a message from the Cash App store, which it was not, basically saying, "Since you're new to the Cash App, we need you to go and get a Amazon gift card, verify the code on the card, send it to us, and we will return the money back to you. And then we know that this is a legitimate account." To him, that seemed like a normal thing. To me, right away, I said, "Well, why would they have you move money to an Amazon gift card? That makes no sense." So little thing, and once I walked him through what was going on, he goes, "Oh, but this looks real." And he kind of showed me the email that he had, and I said, "Well, yeah, it looks real. They made it look real, but this is a money transfer scam. They're trying to get you to send them, in this case, money in the form of an Amazon gift card. It is not real, and once they have that Amazon gift card, they're going to ask you to send another card, and then another card, until you finally catch on. And at that point, you're down $500 in gift cards." So that would be an example of a money transfer scam. Anytime you're sending money like that over to somebody you don't know, especially if it's in the form of a gift card where they're trying to launder it, just stay away from that. Sweepstakes, lottery scams, this is another one that we used to see a lot of. It's kind of slowing down now as scammers realize they've kind of played their hand on this a bit. But this is when you'll find out that you won a lottery and you want to collect the money, and they will tell you, hey, you have to pay fees to get the money. You know, it's overseas. We're going to send it to you, but you got to pay, you know, $10,000 to clear the fees to get it overseas or to wire it or whatever their reasoning is. And people are so excited to find out that they won a lottery or that they won a sweepstakes that they will pay the money to get the money cleared. Yeah, so we've seen a lot of those maybe 2-3 years ago. They've kind of died off lately, but that used to be a very, very common scam. Cover the IRS?
Sure. So you'll get a call from someone that's claiming to be from the IRS or PG&E, AT&T, and they'll ask you to send them money, or that you're at risk of being audited, or your utilities are going to be shut off. They're going to request that you send them money by gift cards. Please don't do it. No government agency will ever call and ask for gift cards. Neither will utility companies. It's okay if you just hang up on that caller. If the government agency or a utility company wants to get a hold of you, they will. The number may not even show up on caller ID as a legitimate caller, but they may end up spoofing a number, and they'll say AT&T. You question them, and if you don't feel right, hang up, and then you call AT&T and ask if there's an issue with your service or your financial institution or even the IRS. They're going to threaten you with warrants, jail, or utility shut-off. You're not going to get a warrant issued for your arrest because you didn't pay a bill. And like I said, go ahead and call the utility company if you have a question about a call that you received. They're going to want the money immediately. Oftentimes, these guys are calling multiple people a day, and if they get just one or two people that end up sending them money, then it's a win for them. The home rental car scam, property owner misrepresents themselves, and they put a fake ad online if you're running a VRBO or Airbnb, and then you go ahead and send a deposit to the account they present to you, and it's not a real rental. We've had, unfortunately, families that have come to Santa Clara. They thought they rented an Airbnb, and when they get there, it's someone's home, and this person, they're out $4,000.
Yeah, the rental market here is so hot that people are so excited to find a place. And usually these places are going to be just a few $100s under market value, so they think they found a deal. And they're so quick to get in there, they don't want to lose it to somebody else. If they'll just send a $500, $1,000 deposit, it would be like Venmo or something. And when we trace this money, it usually ends up being not even anywhere near here. It's usually going back east. We've traced a lot of stuff to Florida. It's not even people that live here. They're just looking online, finding properties that are vacant, and they're opening up fake ads for them. The family member jail scam, this is a really common one that we're seeing a lot more of now than what we used to. This is where you'll get a phone call from somebody pretending to be a bail bondsman or employee at the jail, or maybe an actual police officer saying they've arrested somebody that you know. A lot of times they won't even have a name. They'll say, hey, we're here with your grandson. And somebody might say, oh, do you mean Kevin? Well, yes, Kevin. And then they'll go on and say that Kevin has done something horrible, committed a crime, really needs to get bailed out, and you need to send the bail money because the jails are overcrowded and they need to hurry up and get Kevin out of jail. And they'll ask for, again, it'll be a certain amount of money, usually something that's doable but not overly high, like maybe $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. A lot of times they'll ask it to be moved into a gift card or something like that. Again, all these warning signs, very apparent. That, no police officers are going to call you and ask you for money or ask you to send them any money. That's not how bail works. But people are so nervous and so scared when they hear this. They think that somebody they love or they care about is locked up or in jail. They're willing to do whatever they can to get this person out. So this is something that's picked up a lot of steam. We've had a lot more of these in probably the last 6 to 8 months. Now, the work from home scams, these are when you see the little road signs that say, work from home, make whatever, $50 an hour. That's usually what this is. A lot of times these are go-between scams. Scammers want to move money around and move items around. They don't want to touch any of this stuff, so they'll have you take all the packages for them. that they have purchased fraudulently or illegally with other people's credit cards that were stolen that we talked about earlier. So that's usually what these scams are for. Also going to request purchase items or pay fees for startup costs. So they'll make you pay a lot of money up front to get this thing going, which is going to be money in their pocket. They're never going to actually give you a job. Again, your job is going to be to receive packages or receive items that are probably stolen. You're basically going to be the front for their criminal activity. And this is in the parlance of what we call these money mules. These are people that are actually taking these items and transferring them to eventually to the end user, to the suspect. And you're the go-between. You're the money mule.
Yeah. So we do see romance scams or the sweetheart scams. The person will befriend the victim or potential victim, and then just kind of lure them in, give them a sob story, and all of a sudden the victim starts gifting money to the suspect. The suspect may offer the victim a opportunity to be a business partner, whether it's opening any type of restaurant or it's a home business, and then the money is gifted to them. Of course, it's fraudulent, but that's how we see these scams develop. Oftentimes, a third-party suspect will be introduced to the victim, and additional funds are drawn from the person's account. Service scams, repair persons, solicitors, and contractors. You get that knock on the door and you didn't request any services. It's probably not legitimate. Please don't let them into your home. We had a case here in Santa Clara where we had a group of gypsy scam artists knock on the door of a family. They pretended to be water company representatives, had the victim go to the sink in the kitchen and knock on the faucet, continue to knock on the faucet, while two other suspects went and ransacked the victim's bedroom for cash, jewelry, credit cards. Fortunately, there was a police officer in the area. It led to a pursuit, crash, and 3 people were taken into custody. These guys were wanted in multiple jurisdictions for doing the exact same thing. Please, if you have any type of utility person, demand an ID through a window. And if you get a funny feeling or something's not right, go ahead and call 911 and police will come out to your house and I'll talk to the person that's trying to get in.
So prevention, we've kind of already touched on a lot of this already as we went through these, but let's talk about some basic prevention things here to keep these scams from progressing or even happening. In all these cases, you're going to be asked to make an immediate decision. One exception might be the romance scam. That's kind of the one long game scam that people will play. But with the exception of that, all these scams have that one thing in common, that they're going to want you to make an immediate decision, either buy something or purchase something or immediately send money. It's going to be something they want you to do right then and there. A lot of times they'll even try and keep somebody on the phone. Somebody directs you to stay on the phone while you go and make a payment or while you download an app or do something. No legitimate person's ever going to ask that. No legitimate business or company would ask that. And so when you start hearing those things, understand that you're definitely in the process of falling for a scam. Any kind of detailed explanations, if you start asking questions and the person becomes defensive, if they don't want to explain things to you, again, those are all warning signs of a scam. Anybody who's selling anything legitimate, who's conducting any kind of legitimate business, just isn't going to do that. It's all going to revolve around wanting immediate money. And like we talked about, look for, these are the warning signs you always want to look for, any kind of an immediate payment in the form of, it's always going to be either usually a wire transfer, because those are immediate and are quick. And most of the people that get, that have access to these scams, they usually have access to a bank. This is where they'll keep you on the phone and have you actually walk to your bank and help walk you through the wire transfer. Or they'll have you move it to a gift card, because gift cards are an easy way to launder money. Once money goes on a gift card, and the gift card gets moved to usually they'll just have you take a picture of the numbers, the gift card numbers, or give them to them over the phone. And once they have those numbers are as good as the cash it's on. And it's very difficult to trace them. So that's why criminals love to use gift cards. They're going to try and make a connection, although again, this is no usually an immediate thing, so that connection is going to happen pretty quick. They might say they know you or know somebody that you know. A lot of people tend to fall for this. And then once they've made that connection, they'll then move towards the part of the scam. If you try to stop the scam or ask a lot of questions, A lot of times they'll resort to using scare tactics or threats, say threatening things. Again, this is all done to kind of scare you. This is where the jail scam becomes a really significant one. They'll try to think, hey, your friend's going to stay in jail, not going to get out. So the threats are a big thing to kind of keep these going. And of course, a lot of revolves around get rich quick stuff too. The romance scams are the ones where they want you to invest in a business. So we're going to invest in this business together. We're going to move together. Those are all kind of spun up on the concept of getting rich quick and making a lot of money in a very short period of time, which isn't usually realistic, right? Nobody's going to call you and just suggest this out of the blue if you've never met them. So if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
All right, so ID theft. We deal with a lot of ID theft every day. So it involves getting a certain piece of information from you, whether it's your name, address, birth date, social security number, any other number of identifiers like driver's license, accounts. If someone gets a hold of those, then there is a likelihood that you may be a victim of theft. Let's see. So if someone takes over your identity, they're going to be able to take over your accounts, access them, and open new accounts or obtain loans, purchase vehicles. One of the things we dealt with recently was someone using a victim's name. Well, the suspect had exactly the same name as the victim. So when she walked in to buy a car, she showed him her driver's license, which was a legitimate driver's license, except that she was using the victim's social security number, address, and that's how car dealerships will run credit checks, name, address, and they'll say, okay, this person lives here, she owns a home, she's going to be able to pay for the car. So they sold her the car, and she drove away. And now this victim, unfortunately, owns an Acura that she didn't want. They'll start applying for credit cards and social security benefits, renting apartments and homes, and setting up a life for themselves by getting utilities and cable and all other services.
So we'll talk about some preventative strategies. A lot of this is going to mirror some of the things that we talked about before. Obviously, don't give out your personal information, whether it's on the phone, through the mail, through some mailer that you get. Somebody phishing attacks on the internet where somebody contacts you on the internet and wants you to send them information. Again, nobody reputable is going to do that. If you are contacted by somebody and you're not sure if it's legitimate or not, always hang up and contact or disconnect with them and contact that company or that person directly. We deal with this as police officers. I was talking to somebody today trying to explain to them that I found their information that had been stolen. But in that same case that Pablo was just talking about, where we made all these arrests, we have all this information that belongs to all these different people that these crooks had and that they were using to open up accounts and IDs and cards. And as I call people don't want to give me information on the phone. They think I'm the person trying to scam them. So it's okay, well, just hang up, contact the Santa Clara Police Department, tell me you need to speak with me, and we'll connect. Not a big deal. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If you think something seems suspicious or seems out of sorts, just offer to hang up and contact that company or that person directly through whatever regular means you have. Just do an internet search or a Google search for the number. Don't carry your social security card in your wallet. I can't believe how many people I've actually run into. We obviously search a lot of people and check a lot of wallets, and I can't believe how many people actually still do this. Hopefully you have that number committed to memory. If you don't, keep it somewhere safe, but don't carry it on you. There's no real need to do that. You're not going to ever need to whip out your social security card and show it to somebody or have that number handy. At least not, without going somewhere where it's going to be a planned event where you're going to have to actually use that. Only use it as an identifier if it's absolutely necessary. We don't write those on checks anymore. We don't use that social security number for that. Nobody should need your social security number. Definitely don't give it out to anybody that you don't know. Even if you do know, they probably don't need it. And also preventative strategies to order your credit report from the 3 credit bureaus. You can do this once a year. It's free. You used to have to have some kind of a fraud component. You don't need that anymore. For free, you can check it once a year for each of the credit bureaus. We recommend like every 4 months checking one bureau and then going to the next one every the next 4 months, and then the last quarter checking the other one. So that way, 3 times a year, you can basically check your credit and see what's going on in your accounts. Keep all your personal information in a secure place, including your passwords. Goes without saying, don't share that stuff with anybody. Contact your cell phone provider. Ask about extra security. This is mainly for passwords, things like that. Type in web addresses, never click on links or unsolicited emails. Again, this goes with kind of what we've been saying. If somebody contacts you and you don't trust them or you don't feel comfortable with it, just hang up, disconnect, and contact that company directly.
Yeah. So, everyone gets mail. Please, if you have any type of paperwork that has any PII stuff, shred it. Please, get rid of it. If there's a lot of shredding services in the Bay Area that will take your documents and shred them for you, and they'll do it while you watch them. Good. Don't leave your mail in the mailbox for a couple of days. Like I said earlier, we have suspects who are getting pulled over and officers are searching them. They have mailbox keys that they made from blanks, and they'll break into your mailbox, and if you have weeks or 2 weeks worth of mail in there, it's going to create a lot of heartache for you. Again, just be mindful of your mailboxes. If you see that it's been damaged, please contact the local post office so they can come out and either secure it or put a fraud alert on your area.
Okay, so another preventive strategy is being on top of stuff. A lot of these cases that come across my desk, it's people that just maybe weren't paying attention to what was going on, and they had some warning signs, but they just didn't follow up on them. A lot of times when I contact victims, they'll tell me, oh, well, I received a couple messages or notices in the mail from a company that said that I had opened up some accounts or that I was denied credit when they tried to open. But I didn't think anything. I thought it was a mistake, so I just threw it away. If you start seeing stuff like that, that's a sign you want to kind of pay attention to what's going on. Start pulling those credit reports and looking into what's going on in your situation. Obviously, bills don't arrive as expected. Anything unexpected credit card or statements that show up at your house, make sure you look into that. Call those companies and find out what's going on. And like we said earlier, always inspect your credit report and any financial statements. And you can always contact your post office. If you're going to be gone for a while, Sam, we mentioned that, you can always contact the post office and have them stop your mail for like a week or two. If you're going to be gone for a while, it's always a good idea. When mail starts to pile up, that's when you can really have problems.
Go ahead. All right. So if you are a victim, please call the Credit Bureau and place a fraud alert on your credit. Oftentimes they'll ask you for a police report. So please file a police report with your local agency. Oftentimes we get them online. If you have video of maybe someone stealing your mail, please submit that video to your local agency. You could consider a credit freeze, but you're going to have to contact each credit agency and they will do it for you. But again, it would be really helpful if you had a police report to back up your claim of having your identity stolen.
It is free now, though. You used to have to pay, I think, in 2018, I think they passed a law. So now it's free. You used to have to show that you were a victim of a crime. I think you still have to pay fees. Now it's free for anybody who wants to do it. It is a bit of a hassle. You do have to call all three credit bureaus. They give you a key that you have to hold on to unlock and to file out your credit if you do apply for a loan. So you have to keep 3 keys for 3 different credit bureaus. That can be a little bit of a pain for some people, but it's almost impossible to be a victim of identity theft if you've frozen your credit because nobody can do a pull on your credit.
And then close accounts. If you have accounts that have been compromised, close them. Talk with your banker to set up a new account. Don't worry about having to reroute your Social Security check or your direct deposit. That can all be done, but don't hesitate to close an account if it's being compromised. And also, if you have accounts that you aren't using, just call that, the banking institution and tell them, okay, look, I haven't used this account in so many months. Has there been any type of activity? They'll let you know if it's been compromised as well. And if you don't want to have that account active anymore, you may consider closing it.
That's a good website. They walk you through an action plan. If you are a victim of identity theft or fraud, they actually have a whole section for action plans you can go through. Kind of encompasses a lot of what we've talked about in this presentation, but they kind of lay it out simply for you. So hopefully you won't need that, but if you do, it's a very good website to do.
Thank you very much for that information. Lots of great tips. One of the few things that you said, Detective Carlton and Sergeant Lopez, is scams of today may be very different from what they look like tomorrow. I've been in financial services for just over 23 years, and you are correct in that what we were monitoring back then looked different, but the idea was the same. Is somebody was looking to get one over on innocent consumers, and so we have to be watchful. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please send in your questions via the chat box, and we will get to those questions at the end of the presentation. So next up from the SEFCU team, I'd like to introduce and hand it off to Adrienne Bayot. Adrienne?
Hello, everyone. My name is Adrienne Bayot. Thank you for attending today's seminar or webinar about fraud. I've been in the industry for 26 years. I am the Community and Business Development Relationship Manager for SEFCU. So I'm going to share and touch on some of the things that Santa Clara PD did share with us, because they are very real in the Bay Area and in the Santa Clara County. Due to time, I'm probably going to only try to touch on 3, but might only be able to get through 2. So one of the big ones that has not disappeared in my 20 years of banking is the relationship scam. To this day, I currently have a member who feels that this one individual, a beautiful lady from Florida, is going to marry him at some point. In the last year, he has lost, thank God, only $5,000, but would have been $250,000 if we would have negotiated some of the paper items, meaning checks that he delivered to us. Due to the fact that we knew what was going on in his story, we were able to save him that other $245,000. Unfortunately, we were not able to get the $5,000 back due to the fact that he willingly either transferred her money through Western Union, participated by giving her a wire, or sending her gift cards. The biggest mistake he did make was that he shared his user information and password for his SEFCU account. That provided the female with a way of making deposits from Florida into his California account here at SEFCU. Those checks were legit, but unfortunately they were falsified by changing the name of the presenter and who they were made for. That's where he took the $5,000 loss. When you asked him about it, he said he did not do them, which truly was a true statement on his behalf. But because he shared this information, he's still responsible for those checks being deposited into his account. Those are normally not covered for by your bank, and they're not FDIC insured or NUCA insured. So those are things you really need to be careful of. And like I mentioned, he still to this day thinks that she's going to come over and marry him, and that she is inheriting $2 million that they're both going to share and buy property together. So she's asking him to save more money so that he can put down the down payment for a house. And the one reason he will not stop communicating with her is because she is swearing up and down that, 1, they'll get married, and 2, that she loves him and that he is the love of her life, considering that they have never met in person. So the dating scam is very real. For people that are very alone, this sounds like an amazing idea. I'm going to marry this girl who is supermodel form, according to the pictures. But normally, the individual that is making contact with you is using a false picture, using a voice that they can make on their computer, and that's how they're communicating with you. And it's not only happening to males, it is also happening to females. So please be very careful. Do not share your username or password, and ask yourself this question: am I ever going to meet this person, or is it too real? Is this too real to be true? Especially when you mention, well, I'm going to come and see you, and they tell you no. And they come up with every excuse in the book to why they can never meet you physically. That's a problem. So with that one, please Do not share your username or password. Do not deposit checks for individuals that you don't know. He did that also. A check was made out to her. He came in wanting to deposit, was actually upset that we asked him questions about her because most banks will not take a third-party check unless that individual is present and provides an ID. So those are things that you need to remember as well, that we won't take them. So please don't accept one and send them the money so that they have the cash, because then you're still getting stuck with the loss because no one's going to negotiate that check for you. So that's it for the dating. I want to talk about transfers. I know that Santa Clara PD talked about Venmo and PayPal. You also need to remember that some of our transfers from all banks, they use Zelle, Venmo, some are using PayPal, and then there's another transfer website. I can't think of the name right now. I do apologize for that. But most of these are set up from using your actual phone number. Normally it asks for a cell phone number, an account number, and or your email address. So when somebody is sending you that money, they will ask you for one of those three things, which is great. But at this point, you need to make sure that whatever transferring site you're using, that all of your information is updated. Your phone numbers, your emails, and the account numbers. Because if your phone number, cell phones in particular, you decide you want to get a new one and the company says, we're sorry, we can't transfer your old number to the new telephone company, you now need to make sure that you go to Zelle, PayPal, Venmo, and update your phone number. If you don't, the new person who inherits your old number will receive all your transfers and you can't get it back. And neither can the person who sent it to you. So you need to be very careful. And I'm going to give an example. Sharks were in the playoffs. I had a customer come in and said, oh, I'm buying some tickets for the Sharks game. They're only charging me $750. And I said, oh, that's a really good deal. How are you sending them the money? I'm sending it through Zelle. And I said, please don't send it to Zelle. If you send something through Zelle, which is something that is self-initiated, you don't get that money back. So he's like, oh, I already did it. I'm waiting for him to get the tickets. Well, he never received the ticket, so he was out the $750. So he obviously didn't get to attend the game. He lost $750, and he was a victim with no refund because he initiated the Zelle transfer. Okay, so those transfers are also used to purchase on eBay and on Craigslist for those that still use it. Please be very careful on what it is that they're sending you or where they want you to meet. Or normally if they want you to meet someplace, I would ask them to meet at a bank during open hours, not even at a coffee shop, because no one in the coffee shop is going to help you. People are scared these days. Come to the bank if you're selling a car, if you're selling bigger items. Most of the banks are pretty open for you doing the exchange there, and they'll validate the way you're being paid. So those are two. I definitely needed to touch on the money transfer just because I've seen it happen to so many people and you don't get refunded. The next item I want to go through is caregiving, caregivers. Caregivers, for whatever reason, for anybody that is disability, moving up in age, or has no family to take care of them, they are one of the biggest scam artists, and I apologize if anybody on here is a caregiver. I know that it may not be you, but there's been a good few that have given the caregiver a very bad name. This is going to go back to what Santa Clara PD shared about purchasing cars, paying for someone's rent, and just overall taking advantage of them because they come into the bank with you, and it looks like you're not making the decision. The banks by law have the right to ask them to leave and ask you questions one-on-one. Do not get upset when the banks have to do this. It's part of our due diligence to make sure that you are not becoming a victim from a caregiver and even family members in some cases. So the caregivers, we have noticed in the past, will take you to go buy a new car with them, use your credit, get added to the title, are added to the loan, but it's mainly under your name, or they'll put it under your name, set up the automatic payment so the money comes out of your account and they have the car. So you need to be very careful about what you're doing and what you're signing over, because unfortunately, people are here to take advantage of pretty much everybody these days, regardless of age. But our biggest victims are our seniors, and we need to make sure that you're aware of what's happening and that you're knowledgeable on what you can say. You don't have time today or you're embarrassed. I just need to remind everybody that there is no dumb question in finance or around fraud. And there's 3 things I want you to remember. Why would someone or a company need your social? Why would an employer ask you to send them back money, a gift card, or do a wire or a cashier's check because they overpaid you? In a reality, no company is overpaying anyone. It's what you worked. And then the next one is ensure, again, all of your personal information is updated at your bank accounts for all of your accounts, IRAs, CDs, your financial investments, and then your basic checking and savings accounts. I do also suggest that you put a credit freeze, especially if you don't have any big purchases coming up. And the thing is if you know for whatever reason your card decides to die out, you call them 5 days before you're going to go do your purchase or look for a car, you remove the freeze, and you have smooth sailing. With that, again, I'd like to thank you. Have a great day.